You are joining Making a Difference with Melissa Clark, a new show that shares the compelling stories and voices of well-known and everyday people who change the world in big and small ways. Enjoy our guests, call in, or just listen to be inspired. For this show was made with you in mind. Please join us every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with our special guests. And you can listen to our recast at www.melissaclarkshow.com.
Oh, hi guys, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Melissa Clark. This is Making a Difference. There is Alexa. Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us. I was just doing a quick introduction of who I am. Each week we're going to be having topics with people who make a difference in this world. Today we have Alexa Curtis. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I've been looking at your bio and everything and all of the interviews that you've been doing. Alexa, how old are you?
I'm 22.
Wow, you have so many great accomplishments. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. No problem. And Alexa, tell us, let's get us started with why you are where you are today, please.
Yes. So back in 2011, I launched a website called The Life in the Fashion Lane when I was 12. I'm from a really small town in Eastern Connecticut, was bullied, never fit in, and had this idea to start a blog way before the days of blogging. So over the past 12 years, I'm 22 now, I've built it out into this full-time lifestyle platform for young people on social media and mental health. I have a podcast and I have a summit program. So it's really just inspiring people to be fearless and get out of their comfort zone.
And tell us about the summits that you do. I saw one of them. It was unbelievable. You're very you're inspiring to a lot of women. Is it just women that you go to these?
No, it's ideally both, but just because of kind of my fan base, I think that mostly young women show up. But the first one was at Drexel, and the next one is April 1st at Berkeley. And it's this full day summit called the Be Fearless Summit that brings in tons of different speakers and panels and breakout sessions to really talk about a range of topics from landing your dream job to dating to finances and everything in between.
Wow. And what happened when you were, I saw in your bio that at 7, when you were 7 years old, your father was incarcerated.
Yeah.
Can we speak about that? And at 7, did you have any feelings of, what you were going through? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I actually remember really clearly. And, when I was 7, my father was wrongfully convicted and put in a maximum security prison in Rhode Island. So the year that he got out is the year that I launched my website. And subconsciously, I think I kind of started it as just this way for me to overcome so many things that I was dealing with, both just being a young girl growing up as well as my family. And so he was in prison for 5 years, which was a lot of my childhood, and that really has impacted what I do today. And also I'm very invested in justice reform. So it's cool.
Wow. And so at 12, you started your the fashion life in the fashion lane.
Yep, that's the name of the site. You're good. That's what I started, and now it's called Life Unfiltered with Alexa. But when I started it, it was just called The Life in the Fashion Lane.
Now, I understand that you were bullied as a kid, and that's why you started doing this. Now, it takes a lot of balls to do a fashion because, people make you feel insecure and bad when you're getting bullied. So talk to us a little bit about that and why a fashion blog.
Yeah, for me, fashion was always kind of just something I really connected with, and growing up without any money, without any connections, I always just found fashion to be a really strong outlet for me. And so because of that, I think that's why I started it as fashion. And back then, obviously, I was only 12. So it wasn't until later that I would begin to suffer with things like anxiety and depression and an eating disorder. And so that was just a really simple kind of way for me to try and make friends when the kids at my school were so mean to me and they hated fashion. I ended up kind of making this online community that also really enjoyed fashion and was similar to my age.
Wow. So our topic today is anxiety, depression, and we're going to touch upon bullying. Um, can you tell us how you got bullied and, how people made you feel and all that?
Yeah, bullying is such a prominent thing among so many young people, and when I was growing up, social media wasn't as prominent. So now it's so much more um, easy to bully someone behind a screen. But I mean, really, I was, and a lot of kids are bullied. Like I was the kid who just didn't have any friends. I obviously loved fashion. I was always eating lunch in the bathroom, things like that. And just when then you start a blog, and then I ended up being on TV, and that kind of just gave kids a reason to not attack me, but I think just become very insecure in their own skin, as I showed that I wanted to do all these different things and growing up in a small town. But I really feel like, looking back, I'm not glad that I was bullied, but I feel like I can relate now to so many young people who have dealt with similar situations.
Right. And your anxiety, how old were you when the anxiety started?
I started dealing with anxiety. I remember it was a TV segment that I had when I was 16, and then I was diagnosed with depression when I was 18, and now I'm 22. So it doesn't make it any easier now being a 22-year-old entrepreneur, but I've figured out how to deal with it, but it's not always easy. I will tell anyone that.
Do you take any medication, or I know that you meditate a lot?
Yeah, I don't. I've thought about taking medication, and that's a discussion that has kind of been ongoing for quite a long time in my life. But from what I've heard about it, it can affect your creativity, and that really scares me.
Yeah.
So I go to therapy and I meditate, and I just have certain times where I need to turn off, and that for me has been really effective. But I am not opposed to, if it were to ever get very severe, to go on medication. I just haven't found it necessary right now.
And how do you feel when you get anxiety? What's your symptoms?
Anxiety is the worst. And it's so funny because people, I think, don't actually think anxiety is real. Like, I still talk to people that are like, oh, you make it up in your head. And I'm like, you have no clue what it is. I have such bad anxiety, and I do too many things at once, and I'm very type A. So I have a lot of anxiety, honestly, around finances. Like, doing this all on my own and being completely on my own is a very stressful thing. So, if there's like 2 weeks where I haven't made any money, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? Or like if I'm on Net 40 with a friend, it's slightly traumatizing. So pretty much all of the regular anxiety symptoms, like severely fast racing heartbeat, I can't sleep, I'm not hungry, I'm like nauseous. And I try to know those symptoms and prevent myself from getting really depressed from there, but it can be a hard struggle.
Wow. I suffered from anxiety for a long time. And you know what a symptom is of mine that I'm trying to really just keep under control. But what happens is, and I don't know if there are any people out there that have this, but the brain says to swallow, but the muscles don't. So sometimes I can't swallow, and I get so scared. And but both of my parents had passed away, and I know after my mother, she told me on her deathbed that she was going to take my anxiety with her, and she did. And thank God I've calmed down with everything that I felt. So I do a lot of meditation as well, and I don't take any medication. I mean, my medication is my wine. I love to drink my red wine.
That's the best way to have it.
Yeah. So, everybody has different symptoms, but I think there are ways to control it with breathing. And like I listened to, I was very lucky to interview Dr. Deepak Chopra. Oh, wow. And I was like over the moon. That was my most nervous interview. But I listened to him, and I listened to people who go through, they're scared. They don't know what to do. Just like you said, people think that it's not a real thing.
Yeah, it's very real, and you would be surprised. And that's what I tell young people. The most successful entrepreneurs, Fortune 500 CEOs, a lot of them have anxiety. A lot of them have depression. And sometimes it just kind of comes with the role of being in such high-powered positions.
Right. Are you, so you're an entrepreneur. What are your goals?
My end goal is kind of to be like the next Ellen. So when I started this site, I wasn't until maybe like 18 or 19 that I was like, I really would like a network talk show eventually. So when I got my first show, which was on the air for the last year on Radio Disney, that was incredible. So hopefully by 30, I would eventually like to build the Summit program up and maybe sell it to like a Kmart or a Target, kind of have them take it over, a book. So things like that, just small goals.
What do you want to write about?
Well, I got a book agent last year, so it's kind of like a personal memoir. So the goal would be that it would come out by like 2024. But because I'm still so young, I feel like I want to not rush writing it because things might still happen like in this period of time.
That's so exciting. And you moved from
But also mixed with self-help, so insight from people who.
Oh, Alexa?
What did you say?
I think we froze. We're frozen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I moved from where?
You moved from Connecticut, which is actually not you're from Connecticut, right?
Yeah, I'm originally from Eastern Connecticut by Yukon, very small town, and then I moved to New York when I was 17, stayed there for a year, then I went to Boston for 2 years, and then I moved to LA, and I've been there for 3 years since I got the Disney show.
Wow. So
Yeah.
so you do your podcast at the Disney show. Let's talk about that. Is it Life Unfiltered?
Yeah, so I had the Radio Disney show, which was called Fearless Every Day, which was on the air for the past year, and that show wrapped up production in September. But the podcast that I had for about 2 years prior, which was called This Is Life Unfiltered, and I interviewed probably a lot of similar founders and whatnot that you talk to. And so now I just hit like almost episode 110 weeks of doing it. So it's really just talking to people about being fearless and getting out of their comfort zone.
And what would you tell somebody who wants to do something like what we're doing, and we do podcasts? So what would you tell somebody who's petrified to do it, but they just want to do it?
I would say do it, number one, because you love to do it. I talk to people who are like, I want to start a blog and I need to make money off of it. And I'm like, the only reason I genuinely think I'm successful is because I had no clue what I was getting into. And there's that fear of the unknown. I think if you go into it and you're like, I don't even like to talk, but like, I want to make money. Why are you doing this? There's so many things out there to do. Don't do this because it's very hard. And then second, I would say, I mean, what's the worst thing? Like, when you're sitting behind a screen, when you're sitting behind a microphone, it's not like you're personally really talking to anyone all the time. So there's elements of it that are very kind of easy to overcome, like anxiety or being scared of public speaking. So I would just kind of test it out and like do it for a few weeks and see if you really like it and then keep doing it.
Right. Good advice. I have a telephone number if anybody would like to call in. It's 888-627-6008 if you have any questions for Alexa. And Alexa, are you close with your mom?
I am. Yeah, I'm pretty close with my mom.
That's nice. So she's in Connecticut. Is that right?
Yeah, so she still lives in the town that I grew up in. So super small town. So her and my dad still live there.
Nice. And as far as bullying, I want to go back to that topic because there was a recent story that came out with the little boy. Did you see that in Australia?
I did, but now I'm seeing that he's like fraudulent. So
I know. So they're saying that he is 18.
Yeah.
He's an actor and he's 18. And the comedian, what is his name? I forgot his name. He was wonderful to set up I think it's Brad Williams. And he actually set up a GoFundMe, and I think it's up to like $450,000. Yeah. But he said in a recent Instagram post, thank you, the money that you donated will not be wasted. We have a team of people making sure everything is completely legit. So, but I think the good thing that came out of this whole thing was, it was another awareness of bullying.
I don't get it. Is it real though, or is it fake?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. We don't know because I guess it'll come out. So some media is saying that it's real. Some media is saying that it's false. So, Yeah. What advice would you give to somebody who is getting bullied?
I would say to reach out to whoever you feel close to. And I never did that. And I look back and I feel like there were so many free hotlines and online communities and groups, and I wish I had participated in them more. But I would say that depending on your age, if you're in middle school or high school, that you really need to reach out to someone at your school. And if they really don't assist in any way, then you need to go to someone higher. You need to go to a parent, because a lot of times they won't directly talk about bullying, and schools should. And I would say if you're older and you are working a corporate job and something like that is happening, then directly reaching out to HR. And if it gets severe enough, then you need to start looking for other jobs, because a lot of times a lot of corporate companies don't want to deal with it, and you don't deal with it either.
Right. And when you were bullied as a young girl, did it affect you now?
Yeah, I would say as a kid, I would say that the trauma that I dealt with my family has way severely more impacted me than bullying. I honestly don't really remember a lot of my childhood because it was so traumatic. So I remember certain situations of what happened to my father, certain situations of bullying. But I would say that I am lucky and fortunate that I didn't ever feel like I was unsafe or anything like that happened from what I can recall. But I would say that it has made me a completely stronger person. And again, all I chalk it up to is, instead of kind of being like, why did this happen to me? I'm like, this is good because now I can relate to more kids. And this is I've made a life and a career out of doing so. So I would never be like, I sit and I cry every day, because I don't. Like, everyone deals with something, and I just happen to deal with bullying and what happened to my dad. So, that's just it.
Right. Did they bully you because of your dad? Is that what happened?
No, I started getting bullied around the 7th grade. So it was I think it was the year that my father got out of prison. But that time period, which was like 2007, like, wrongful convictions and incarcerations were not spoken about. So, if it had happened now, I think I would have had maybe more friends who would have been more supportive. But I do remember certain situations where kids brought it up, but it was not something that I talked about or that many kids knew about, more so parents in my town.
Wow. And, I feel horrible for the person who's bullying, because they're the ones that have, the issues. And, what would you say to somebody who's bullying somebody else?
Oh man. I mean, first I would say to the kid who's getting bullied, anyone, and I look back and I'm like, man, they were just so insecure. Anyone who's putting someone down is deeply insecure and deeply flawed. And sometimes if you can force yourself to take it as a compliment, take it as a compliment. And if you can, and I would say to the person who's bullying someone, I think a lot of people don't even realize they're bullying people. And I've seen it on social media, and I've gotten DMs and whatnot. And I'm like, this was such an inappropriate thing to say to me via a comment or via a DM, but I don't even think nowadays people even know what bullying is or what being mean is versus what being nice is. So I would say that, if you can afford therapy, if you can find therapy, that talking to someone is really helpful. But it's difficult if you're a peer to talk to a bully. I think it needs to come from someone who's above, like, again, if you're an adult and it's an HR department who can talk to the person who's putting other people down. If it's a guidance counselor who can talk to the young person, because really they're not going to listen to someone who's their age.
Right. And bullying doesn't stop. It goes into adulthood, and it actually just gets even worse.
Yeah.
And I always say to whoever, I always believe that we should be connected to whomever. To me, I'm connected to God because I grew up Catholic. But now I've been studying Buddhism for the past 10 years. So, and that's why I love Deepak Chopra. Yeah. But I always say, and my father he used to say, stay connected with God. Because once you have that connection, once you lose that connection, it's you have nobody to help you. You can't do this life on your own. No. So that's what I always say. And I say a lot of prayers for the people who are mean to others. Yeah. Unless they deserve to be mean, you don't want to be mean to somebody, but it depends on the person's attitude. So yeah, you're right. Bullying is totally different now, and especially with social media. And social media, it could be a great thing or it could be a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know what, this kid could not be 9 years old and everybody's like, he's 18 and this, imagine what he feels like even now. He got, you know, I'm not making light of it, but imagine what the kid feels like now. It's oh my God, you know, if he is a legit, you know, but that was horrible, and that pulled at a lot of people's heartstrings to hear a little child at 9 years old saying, or who, I'm sure that there are other kids saying they want to kill themselves, and they do.
Yeah.
And it's just I can't touch upon that. I had I'm going to have Dr. Robbie Ludwig. I'm going to interview her in regard to this whole conversation, so she can give her expertise. Yeah. You know, it's just us talking. I'm not an expert, but I know, you know, what I've been through in my life. But Alexa, tell everybody where we can find you.
Yes, you can follow me on social media at Alexa_Curtis, and the summit, which is at Be Fearless Summit. And then my website is www.lifeunfilteredwithalexa.com.
That's amazing. And you have a summit coming up in April. Is that right? At Berkeley?
Berkeley, yes.
Okay. Repeat that one more time.
So you can RSVP right on the website as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's April 1st. It's April 1st at UC Berkeley, and you can RSVP directly on the website.
Beautiful. And I'll ask my guys if they can put it on the website there.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. You're beautiful. God bless you. And thank you for being so open to people.
Thank you so much for having me, and have an awesome weekend, and keep being a badass yourself.
I'm trying. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. What a doll. Thank you so much. So now I have Lady James.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being with us today. You heard the whole conversation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, beautiful. All right, so you and I know each other on a personal level, and we broke bread one night for about 2 hours, and your story just had me on the floor. So tell us who you are, what you're about, and explain your definition of yourself.
You know, I don't know. I'm just James, and you know, I am like gender nonconforming, I guess is like the title I would use to explain the way I present myself. So basically, like, you know, I live life in my own definition. Like I'm not articulating myself so well right now.
That's okay. Take your time. Take your time. We have plenty of time.
Okay. Yeah, so I came out as gay when I was maybe 14 years old, and for a lot of years I lived my life as a gay man, and then when I was about 20 years old, I kind of started experimenting with my self-expression, and I started growing my hair longer and wearing women's clothes to work, and it basically snowballed into like me really finding out who I am and living an authentic life regardless of anybody's opinion. And I basically, when I say I live life by my own definition, it's like, you know, when you walk through the world, like there's so many norms that you can follow, but for some people those norms don't work for them. So it's just kind of asking yourself, what do you want, regardless of what other people say you should want, and living true to yourself.
Right. So, all right. So you came out as gay at 14. When did you feel this? How old were you? Do you remember?
It's actually like, I felt like I was gay. Obviously, like when I was a kid, I didn't have the language to like understand like what it meant to be gay, but I think I noticed I had an attraction towards men when I was like as young as like 3rd grade.
Wow. Okay. So
really
do you believe when people say that you are born gay?
You know what, it's interesting because growing up, I always thought I was born gay. And then when I kind of started wearing women's clothes, I kind of started reevaluating it and like thinking maybe this was something I was impressioned by as a young child. And like I had the conversation with my oldest sister, like how I was having these thoughts, like maybe I wasn't born gay, maybe in my developmental years, like I was more impressioned by my mom than my father, and that's why I am the way I am now. And she said, because she's 11 years older than I am, and she, you know, took care of me a lot, just as much as my mom did. And she said, no, James, like, you 100% were, like, you are the reason I think people are born gay.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So your parents were very supportive. They were supportive with your with you coming out. Can you tell us how? Can you tell us how you came out to them?
There was like no really hiding the fact that I was gay. I mean, I was just so flamboyant from such a young age, and like I had such an attraction for like girls' toys when I was a kid. So like even before I admitted it to myself, everybody knew. But I basically, when I was in 8th grade, I started dating like somebody, and I put it on my MySpace, actually, when MySpace was like the big social media platform.
Oh my God,
And,
MySpace.
yeah, and my brother saw it that I was in a relationship with a guy, and he told my mom, and then my mom confronted me, and like I had admitted it to her, and it was such a difficult conversation for me to have, but regardless, my mom like supported me.
And your father as well, is that right?
Yeah, my dad is, my parents are divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And in my adolescence, like I never had like a negative relationship with my father, but he wasn't there that much. But he knew, and he never had a negative thing to say about it. So yeah, I never, like, my family, like, I have a big immediate family. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and like everybody, like, it was just, I don't know, I just was myself, and like nobody made me feel bad about it at home.
That's at home. So tell us what happened outside of your home when you would go out.
So,
Let's talk. I remember having a conversation with you. I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I remember having a conversation, and we spoke about the first time that you went out in public as in ladies' clothing. Yeah. So can you tell us about that for someone who's frightened to do that, because you had a lot of courage?
You know, there's kind of 2 big like coming out moments in terms of like wearing women's clothes that I had. The first time is like literally the first time I went into public wearing women's clothes. And I did it with a friend. And if it weren't for that friend, it would have been so much harder. But I was like maybe 19, and we were friends with a couple drag queens, and they had wigs and everything. And me and my friend Zach, like he was experimenting with his self-expression before I was. Mm-hmm. And when we became friends, we really got into like supporting each other, and it opened this world of like self-expression for me. And it's so funny. We literally like, I don't know, we went to like a 7-Eleven or like a convenience store wearing like wigs and like dresses and heels, and like it was such like a messy situation, and like I was so scared, but like I did it. And like fast forwarding to my life 4 years or 5 years later, it's was so scary at first, and now it's just so easy. So
because you started experimenting wearing the clothes at what, 20, is that right? 2021?
Around 20, yeah.
And you're 25 now.
I'm 25, yeah.
Oh, okay. So you go to work and you're dressed up as a woman, and it's just like, it's wonderful. Like, does anybody ever give you any, and I've seen you dress up at like, you look better than most women out there. you're so, you know, the way that you are. I mean, I've seen people like look at you because of the way that you hold yourself, you know, and you take care of yourself, which is wonderful. So tell, like when you go to work, what happens?
Well, you know, so like in terms of like my little coming out moments, like big, like defining moments in like my like identity and finding myself, like there was that one moment when I literally was the first time I went out into the world wearing women's clothes. And I went with my friend, we were wearing a wig, and it looked crazy. We looked totally a mess. But the next one was working at Bloomingdale's like years ago. I worked at Bloomingdale's, and I'm so grateful for Bloomingdale's, and it was such an amazing experience working for that store. So I basically, for a couple months, I had a really strong support system working at Bloomingdale's with the people that I saw every day. And I was expressing to them like, oh, I kind of want to wear a dress to work, wear a dress to work for a couple months. And I was so afraid to do it because I didn't realize I had, any rights. Like I thought, oh my God, if I come to work in women's clothes, they're going to bring me into the HR office, tell me to go home. So
Wow.
I had so much fear. And
so wait, can I just interrupt you? You were going to work dressed as a man with your hair?
Yeah. I had short hair, and for a year I worked at Bloomingdale's, and I wore men's suits and ties and button downs and all that.
Wow.
And then
you didn't feel comfortable, James. You didn't feel like yourself, right?
You know what? It's so funny because walking through this employee entrance, there was this big mirror. There was this big mirror right through the entrance, and like you would walk and see past the mirror every day before starting your day on the floor. And I would it was like increasingly looking in that mirror just made me feel so insecure.
Looking at yourself in men's clothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Made me feel so insecure. Like, I don't know. I felt like uncomfortable about the way my body looked. And I just wasn't comfortable, and I didn't realize like why I was so uncomfortable. I didn't have like this innate desire to like dress in women's clothes and think that it was gonna like help me. I was just so lost. Like I was like drowning almost in like this insecurity that I didn't know where it was coming from. Like I didn't know that expressing myself was gonna answer a lot of my problems. But yeah, so like back to what I was saying about like when I started cross-dressing at Bloomingdale's. So after a few months, I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just gonna, sorry if I swore.
That's okay.
I was like, I'm just gonna do it. And I brought a backup outfit in my car, a men's outfit, left it in my car. And I was wearing like 4-inch stilettos and a tight little bodycon dress. And I had like really short hair. And I like so fearlessly walked into Bloomingdale's, and everybody had known me for such a long time, and like everybody that I worked with supported me 100%, and I just rocked it, and I was so confident, and I was unapologetic. And at the end of the day, the HR manager came up to me and she said, James, like, we support you 100%. If you ever have a problem with anything, like, you can come to us. So, and I never went back from there. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I love that. And let's talk about any bullying that happened to you. Outside of work and outside from home. Give us an example of what happened.
In my adult life, I don't really deal with bullying, to be honest. I think I present myself in a way that doesn't tolerate bullying. But when I was younger, bullying had impacted my life, like I still think I'm impacted by my bullying from when I was younger. In about like 5th grade, everybody started to notice I was different, right? And it was, I would say in like my public school in the 5th grade, like there might have been 300 students, right? And say half are boys, half are girls. Of the 150 boys, not one of them was kind to me. Like if they weren't bullying me, they ignored me. So all the girls were always so friendly and supportive, and I was friends with all the girls, but like literally for me, like not one boy extended an ounce of kindness to me for an entire school year. And
were there other gay boys in your school?
No, I was like the only one that people could tell. I mean, I'm sure of course there were, but it's just I'm the only one that was noticeable enough.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I said before, my family supported me, and I never even contemplated my own gayness, right? Like it just was, I was just being myself, and I wasn't thinking twice about it. And then all of a sudden, when I'm, you know, about 10 years old, everyone's pointing out that like I'm a faggot or I'm this and I'm that. And it was like so difficult for me to deal with because, you know, I didn't have my feet on the ground in this world. I didn't have a set like sense of identity and who I am and confidence. I'm still building my confidence, right? Because I'm such a young age. And it was the fact that like in an environment where you have these boys and you have the girls, and like not a single boy is willing to give you any sense of kindness, it made me feel like there was something wrong with me. And through my adult life, it was so weird, like in terms of like my mental health, like I'm not really an anxious person.
Right.
I don't really deal with much anxiety, but it was so weird. I noticed that like every time I would interact with men who were like masculine presenting and not like gay men, I would get extreme anxiety. And I could barely hold just like a regular small talk conversation with them. And it was like, even say I'm like ringing something at Bloomingdale's, right? This man's going to buy a necklace for his wife, and he's at the counter and he's just buying it. Like I would just full anxiety, like so uncomfortable, because I was carrying this shame and this trauma from when I was younger, when none of the men or the boys like were kind to me.
Right.
And I was like 20 years old and I was still dealing with this. And it was so hard. And then I noticed once I kind of started wearing women's clothing, like it alleviated it for me. And it turned the tables around actually. And I started to make men uncomfortable because now they have to face someone who's not like going to apologize for who they are, you know?
Right.
I don't know. It just, like in terms of like from a mental health, like perspective, like, you know, if you're suffering from depression and anxiety, like thinking about that, like it that means that there's something in your mind that you're not facing or dealing with properly.
I totally agree. Yes, I totally agree.
And
mm-hmm.
Wait, yeah.
Oh no, I was going to say, you've told me that you've had some problems with meeting men. Is that right? Because they don't know. Yeah. So yeah. Tell us about that, please.
That's like I would have to say honestly, the two hardest parts about being yourself and wearing women's clothes when you're a man, or vice versa, or whatever it may be, like the two hardest things are, one, finding a job and getting promoted within your company. And two is dating, honestly, because, you know, the social movement, like the social like climate in the last 5 years has changed so much about with people who are, you know, trans or gender nonconforming or whatever. So it's still something that like, you know, the majority of people are, you know, getting used to. And I mean, if I'm just going to get into it, like because if I really put forth the effort and do makeup and hair and everything, right, and I really look like a woman, all these men who are typically straight men are attracted to me and are willing to pursue me, but it's not the kind of thing where they're going to like bring me home to like mom and dad, you know, because that's obviously a little awkward.
Right.
So that's it's a challenge.
Are they gay?
That's a good question. This is like a big like topic of discussion that people like, I don't know if they've found the answer to, like straight men who are attracted to trans women, or, you know, I think that they're like mostly straight. I think that maybe I would say they're like a little bit bisexual.
Right, but they're not.
That's my personal opinion.
Right, they're just not coming out. Yeah. Right. Okay,
yeah.
That's okay. That's okay for them to feel that way. But when you want to have a relationship, it's not that, you know, it's not fair for you. It's not fair for you, really.
Yeah, it's so frustrating because for, you know, going through being bullied and then kind of coming into myself as an adult, and now I'm expressing myself and I'm being true to myself, but now there's a whole new set of problems that are presented, like dating. And it, for a while, like I had to like blame myself, right? And I was like, oh my God, like I must be doing something wrong, or this and this and that. And then I kind of just like told myself like, no, it's not your fault. Like, um, it's just like, I don't know, it's just like difficult dating. Like really, that's like the only facet. And like, for the sake of having a hard dating life, like I wouldn't give up like being true to myself, because it's literally fixed every other area in my life. So
Yeah, it's not that easy dating, being a single
yeah.
female
Mhm.
who's straight. I mean, it's not, you know, we also have problems as well. So it's just, you know,
Mhm.
but I'm glad that, you know, you're out and you're doing your thing, and
Mhm.
your pictures on Instagram are gorgeous.
Thank you.
And, you know, I want you to, if you can, tell someone who is going through what you're, you know, they like to dress as a girl, but you also want to keep your male parts. Is that correct?
Right,
Okay.
right. It's I have like a unique kind of like identity with all my, you know, nonconformity. Like um people, when they see me, because I dress in women's clothes and I look for the most part like a woman, they automatically assume like I'm transgender. Which I'm not going to blame anyone for thinking that, because I would have thought the same thing. But I'm a man. I was born a man. I plan to keep staying like a man. It's just it's almost like my personal style is feminine, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't go as far as like something like I would ever change myself biologically, because um, I'm so holistic with my health, which, you know, I avoid medication of all sorts unless it's absolutely necessary. And yeah, I never, I don't know, I'm just comfortable with who I am now. So I'm James, and I'm happy to be James. Where I guess maybe some other people like feel like they really need to, you know, change their name and hormone therapy and the whole mile. But yeah, which confuses a lot of people. I end up having to explain myself and who I am all the time. So,
How
which
do
is
you,
fine.
you're okay with that, or how do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't mind like, you know, explaining who I am, because obviously people like, this is like not something you see every day. So how could I ever expect people to understand, you know? How could I ever get mad at someone for using the wrong pronouns? Like when it's not something you see every single day. And you know, it's someone paid me a really, really nice compliment at my job the other day. So working at Rockefeller Center, right? Like I work for the company that owns it, Tishman Speyer, and
That's awesome.
there's a like each building in Rockefeller Center has their own property manager, and I introduced myself to one of the property managers. I said, hi, like I'm James, and you know, she's whoever, and she's like, you know, nice to meet you, but everybody knows who you are. And I was like, what does that mean? So I was saying it to someone, and this guy was like, yeah, well, you know what? Like, you're trailblazing here, because you're the only person who expresses yourself throughout all of Rockefeller Center in the way that you do. And it's bringing light to your community, and it's introducing people to new things. And I never like gave myself that much credit, you know? It was like, that's, you know, that's interesting. And it's true actually that I'm the only person in the area, you know, doing it through the company. And I don't know, yeah, it just basically said I was trailblazing for my community, and that meant like so much to me. So, you know, I don't mind, you know, clarifying to everybody how I present myself and how I identify, because it's new, and I'm just, you know, putting this in people's awareness.
You're so courageous.
Thank you.
It takes a lot for people, you know, to go out there and be themselves. I'm just trying to think of a time if I ever did that, and I can't really say that I do. I mean, you know, it's hard out there. And a lot of people do get hurt, you know, for being themselves. But you know what? Now that I think about it, our society is so different now. Whereas when I grew up, we wouldn't even talk about this. This wouldn't be a topic, you know. Not that I'm 100 years old, you know, but I grew up in the 80s, and but now it's so acceptable. I was asking my niece, she's what, 13? Is she 14? She's in her teens. And I asked her, I said, Juliana, you know, are there people that walk around and hold hands, you know, same sex? And she goes, actually, yes, there is. And I'm like, and nobody says anything? She goes, no, because it's the world that we live in now, you know? And, you know, you always have to let people be who they are.
Right.
And, you know, life is hard as it is, and we just have to, you know, it's not hurting anybody. What are you doing to hurt somebody?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I mean, I'm friends with a lot of older Italian people, so you know, they you know, they say stuff, but you know, that's just their old school. You know what I mean? So nobody is hurting anybody unless you're out there and you know you're hurting people and you're whatever. You're not,
right.
And nobody is either. You know what I mean? Like I have a lot of gay friends, and they're so lovely to be around. And
yeah, I mean, it's nobody's place to tell someone how to live their lives if it doesn't hurt people, right? Like if this was like negatively affecting, you know, the society and the population, then of course people should intervene and stop and say like, wait, we need to think twice about this. But letting people express themselves and wear the clothes they want to wear and, you know, have whatever partner they want, that's something that only stays between a person, their family, and, you know, their spouse or their partner. So I don't know. It's just, you know, like talking about like bullying and stuff, like for me, and like the courage that it took to like get to where I am now, like I was thinking about it when you were talking with Alexa about bullying and what her response was. I was thinking about my response, and when I was younger and kids bullied me, I didn't tolerate it. I was like, no, like because my family didn't shame me, I didn't feel ashamed. So I always stood up for myself, because that's like my advice to people who are being bullied. Like, yes, absolutely go to whoever is in authority to put a stop to it if they can, but like also like never back down. Like never accept like someone else's judgment and their criticism when you're not doing anything to hurt anyone, you know? Like in 5th grade, like all the boys started being mean to me, like, and calling me all these horrible names and like pushing me in the wall and like attacking me on the playground and all this stuff. And like I always stood up for myself.
What would you say? Can you, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Can you give us an example of what you would say? Like if somebody
what I would say back to them?
Yeah, like what
I went, oh my God, I was like 10 years old. If someone called me like, you know, they called me a faggot or something, I'd be like, oh my God, I would say like, just like really petty things, like childish, like, you know, fuck you, you're ugly, like shut the fuck up. And I would get like personal, like say, I don't know, like if I kind of combated it with more combat, which isn't necessarily the greatest thing, right? That's just adding, you know, whatever heat to the fire. But the best thing you could do is just, you know, be confident and like not, you know, it's just being confident and just disregard it as much as you can. I mean, that's impossible for some people, especially at such a young age, you know, when you just want so hard, like so badly to fit in. But I don't know, just don't accept it, you know? If you have to fight somebody who's disrespecting you, you might have to. And that says to you that I don't accept what you're saying and I'm going to live my life over here and fuck you, pretty much.
Sorry,
Uh,
Feather Lake. It's all right. No, it's a passion. It's a passionate topic. So that's
mhm.
quite all right. But yeah, of course, we would always before we do violence, we would talk about things, and But it's very good that you do defend yourself. A lot of people are scared to do that. You just got to do it in a smart and humane way, and you know. It's just wonderful. Now, do you see yourself ever like getting married, or do you want to have children?
Uh, I want to get married so badly. Um, I really do. I don't know. It's so hard dating though. Like when you dress the way I do. So I don't know. We'll see. Yes, I mean I want that commitment. I want like someone to share my life with. Kids, I don't know. I don't know about kids.
Do you have any
I don't
children in your
know.
family? Does it? Your sisters are
Um,
older or younger?
yeah, my oldest sister has two
Oh, okay.
daughters. My two nieces. They're so freaking cute.
Now, do they call you
Um,
uncle or aunt?
it's a
Uncle.
funny thing. The oldest one is probably like 8 or 9 years old, and then the younger one's 4 years old. And the younger one thinks I'm a girl, and the older one is always correcting her, like, no, that's Uncle James. And the older one like totally gets it. Like she is just like totally understands who I am, and like there's nothing weird about it. She actually she showed me one of her stuffed animals, and it was like a sparkly like unicorn. She's like, I know you would like this one. It was just so
Uh,
funny. Yeah.
yeah. Well, at least they're open to it because your family's open to
Mhm.
it. Your sister is, so.
Yeah. Well, hate is taught. I don't,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah. And I feel like my nieces kind of prove that because my sister never taught them any kind of, judgment towards other people, and naturally they're not being judgmental. So they're
Wow.
like kids will be curious enough to be like, I've never seen a person like you before. What are you? Who are you?
Hmm.
Why are you like this? And then if you explain it to them in a positive way, they'll understand and they'll accept. But if you kind of explain it and be like, oh, that's not really normal, that's weird, kids are going to be like, oh, that's weird, I don't like it.
Right. And what is what do you do for a living now? You work for?
I started working for a new company 3 months ago. I work at Rockefeller Center.
Mhm.
I basically am like a receptionist for the office, like the
You
corporate
you
office.
want to get into entertaining, is that right? You want to do modeling? Because
Yeah.
I wanted to hook you up with a couple of my designer friends,
Mhm.
and that's still going to happen. And because you're so
Mhm.
tall. How tall are you?
I'm 5'10" and a half.
Yeah, and that's without heels.
Yeah.
Oh my
I haven't
God!
worn
So
heels in a while.
yeah, we're gonna be hooking you up with some people, and I told you that between Paul and I. So tell
Mhm.
everybody where. Thank you so much for being with us today. First of all,
Of course.
you're one of my favorite people. From the moment I met you, we liked each other. So thank you so
Uh-huh.
much.
Yeah. Thank you so
And
much for having me.
no, my pleasure. Tell everybody where we can find you.
You can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is that lady James. And yeah.
Thank you, James, so much. You're the best. I'll talk to
All
you
right.
soon.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Every week we're going to have a topic, something like this. Perhaps, we're going to do funny things. We're going to do serious things. And next week it's going to be all about animals. So I'm like obsessed with animals, especially on Instagram. And we have a dog named Tatum where the father does the voice for him. And it's just so funny. So please stay tuned with us. You can follow me on my Instagram, which is writerslife1127, and head over to my website, which is www.melissaclarkshow.com. And I want to thank you so much, and please be kind to one another. Thank you to Alexa, and thank you to James. And I've been meaning to do this show for a good year now. I'm a published writer. I work for a lot of publications. And I love my work, and I love to help people, put their voice out into this world. So I'm very fortunate, and I thank you so much for joining us.